Hey, I'm reading the Interagency Guidance on Privacy Laws and Reporting Financial Abuse of Older Adults. Purpose of this interagency guidance um, issued by the Fed, the CFTC, the CFPB, the FDIC, the Federal Trade Commission, the NCUA, the OCC, and the SEC, issuing the guidance to financial institutions to clarify the applicability of privacy provisions of the GLBA Graham-Leach-Bliley Act to reporting suspected financial exploitation of older adults. Employees of depository institutions and other financial service providers that constitute financial institutions for purposes of the GLBA may observe signs of possible financial exploitation of an older adult. Various federal and state authorities either require or encourage reporting of this type of information to the appropriate agency. This guidance clarifies that reporting suspected financial abuse of older adults to appropriate local, state, or federal agencies does not, in general, violate the privacy provisions of the GLBA or its implementing regulations. In fact, specific privacy provisions of the GLBA and its implementing regulations permit the sharing of this type of information under appropriate circumstances without complying with notice and opt-out requirements. Background: elder abuse includes the illegal and improper use of an older adult's funds, property, or assets. Recent studies suggest that financial exploitation is the most common form of elder abuse and that only a small fraction of incidents are reported. Older adults can become targets of financial exploitation by family members, caregivers, scam artists, financial advisors, home repair contractors, fiduciaries such as agents under power of attorney and guardians, and others. Older adults are attracted to targets because they may have significant assets or equity in their homes. They may be especially vulnerable due to isolation, cognitive decline, physical disability, health problems, and/or the recent loss of a partner, family member, or friend. Financial institutions can play a key role in preventing and detecting elder financial exploitation. A financial institution's familiarity with older adults' encounters may enable it to spot irregular transactions, account activity, or behavior. Prompt reporting of suspected financial exploitation to adult protective services, law enforcement, and/or long-term care ombudsmen can trigger appropriate intervention, prevention of financial losses, and other remedies. Discussion of privacy protections. The GLBA establishes a general rule that a financial institution may not disclose any non-public personal information about a customer to any non-affiliated third party unless the financial institution first provides the consumer with a notice that describes the disclosure as well as other aspects of its privacy policies and practices, and a reasonable opportunity to opt out of the disclosure and the consumer does not opt out. However, Section 502E of the GLBA provides a variety of exceptions to this general rule that permit a financial institution to disclose information to non-affiliated third parties without first complying with notice and opt-out requirements. Generally, disclosure of non-public personal information about consumers to local, state, or federal agencies for the purpose of reporting suspected financial abuse of older adults will fall within one or more of the exceptions. These disclosures of information may be made either at the agency's request or on the financial institution's initiative. The following are specific exceptions to the GLBA's notice and opt-out requirement that, to the extent applicable, would permit sharing of non-public personal information about consumers with local, state, or federal agencies for the purpose of reporting suspected financial abuse of older adults without the consumer's authorization and without violating the GLBA. A financial institution may disclose non-public personal information to comply with federal, state, or local laws, rules, or other applicable legal requirements such as state laws that require reporting by financial institutions of suspected abuse. And this is Chapter 15 of the United States Code, Section 6802E8, and I'm not sure if this has been implemented yet. I'll look that up later, but the second bullet point, a financial institution may disclose non-public personal information to respond to a properly authorized civil, criminal, or regulatory investigation or subpoena or summons by federal, state, or local authorities or to respond to judicial process or government regulatory authorities having jurisdiction for examination, compliance, or other purposes as authorized by law. Guessing the CFPB wants to write this into their regulations. A financial institution may disclose non-public personal information to protect against or prevent actual or potential fraud, unauthorized transactions, claims, or other liability in implementing For example, this exception generally would allow financial institutions to disclose to appropriate authorities non-public personal information in order to A. Report incidents that result in taking of an older adult's funds without actual consent, or B. Report incidents of obtaining an older adult's consent to sign over assets through misrepresentation of the intent of the transaction. And the last point here about sharing information without violating GLBA says, to the extent specifically permitted or required under the provisions of law and in accordance with the Right to Financial Privacy Act of 1978, a financial institution may disclose non-public personal information to law enforcement agencies, including the CFPB and federal functional regulators and the FTC, self-regulatory organizations, or for an investigation on a matter related to public safety. In addition, the financial institution may disclose non-public personal information with the consumer's consent or consent of the consumer's legal representative. Alright, so to put this into perspective, we're talking about a customer that continually comes in with fraudulent checks saying that he won the lottery. And he's not going to stop bringing them in, but if we try to counsel him to no avail, and then we ask him to just give us permission to talk to his daughter, his son, his caregiver, at that point, once we have his consent, we can discuss it with family members. Possible signs of financial abuse of older adults. The Department of the Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network published an advisory in February 2011 that describes potential signs of elder financial exploitation that might trigger the filing of a suspicious activity report. As described in the advisory, among the possible signs of abuses are A. Erratic or unusual banking transactions or changes in banking patterns, such as 1. Frequent large withdrawals, including daily maximum currency withdrawals from an ATM. B. Sudden non-sufficient fund activity. 3. Uncharacteristic non-payment for services, which may indicate a loss of funds or access to funds. 4. Debit transactions that are inconsistent for an older adult. 5. Uncharacteristic attempts to wire large sums of money. Or 6. Closing of CDs or accounts without regard to penalties. B. Interactions with older adults and caregivers. 1. A caregiver or other adult individual shows excessive interest in the older adult's finances or assets, does not allow the older adult to speak for himself, or is reluctant to leave the older adult's side during conversations. 2. The older adult shows an unusual degree of fear or submissiveness toward a caregiver, or expresses a fear of eviction or nursing home placement if money is not given to a caretaker. 3. The financial institution is unable to speak directly with an older adult despite repeated attempts to contact him or her. And 4. A new caretaker, relative, or friend suddenly begins conducting financial transactions on behalf of the older adult without proper documentation. 5. The older adult moves away from existing relationships and toward new associations with other friends or strangers. 6. The older adult's financial management changes suddenly, such as through a change of power of attorney to a different family member or new individual. Or 7. The older adult lacks knowledge about his or her financial status, or shows a sudden reluctance to discuss financial matters. Further information about the use of suspicious activity reports to report suspected elder financial exploitation is available in Vincent's The SAR Activity Review, published in May 2013. In addition, if financial institutions or other organizations are interested in raising public awareness among other older adults and their caregivers about preventing, identifying, and responding to elder financial exploitation, Money Smart for Older Adults, a financial resource tool, serves as a helpful source of training and information. all that we have in this interagency guidance.